There's a reason why you've never been able to accept certain industries and systems at face value. You were never meant to thrive within it. You've been called to govern. And because you've been called to govern, I've made this series for you. Hi, I'm Namalo Tayo, and I guide founders, creators, visionaries, celebrities, and leaders in high places with multi-venture visions to align their brand, universe, and ecosystem with the vision that God has given them. Activate the capacity that they need to govern their respective industries, culture, and realms. If this video activates you at all in any way, if you find yourself in any of these archetypes, then make sure you click the link in the description to join my newsletter. It's my private transmission chamber where founders, creatives, powerful leaders, and celebrities receive revelation-based guidance, governance codes, and strategic clarity for their multi-realm visions. This is a 6-part series, so if you would like to watch all 6 parts from King all the way to Sovereign, the link for the official playlist will be down below. Anyways, let's get into this video. Up until now, the collective has only ever known leaders and influencers. We've only ever known people who reinforced the realms that we've been subjugated to. We haven't had space for anyone to create and build in the way that I'm going to be explaining in this series. But the time has come, and I have been given the mandate to wake the governors up. And so I was given this series to create so that the governors, the people who have been called to not just exist within realms, but to create the realms and to set the standard for us as a collective, the people who have been called to lead through atmosphere and to shift the atmosphere of the world, the people who have been called to use their impact and their leadership skills in the form of governance. It's time for y'all to wake up, and this is why I created this series. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what governance is, because it's not a word that you typically hear. If you're African, and if you're like a Pentecostal African who goes to like a prophetic church, and you have like a apostle, then maybe you might have heard the word governance in terms of the spiritual world or in terms of spiritual warfare. That Christian version of it has overlap, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about. Governance is something that precedes leadership and influence. Influence is something where you have the ability to shift and affect the behaviors, choices, and directions of others within a realm. But you don't truly own it. You don't make the rules. You just influence. You can inspire, you can sway, you can shift trends, but you can't shift the foundation of a realm. Leadership is basically a form of custodialism. That's not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. It ensures that the rules are enforced and you're modeling the standards that were set by a governor. All governors are leaders and influencers, but not all leaders and influencers are governors. So if you've watched my content and you've come across me at all, then you know that when I talk about becoming the blueprint, leading and going first, setting the tone for your industry, holding the line of your vision until the rest of the world catches up, or building towards a new earth and thinking in universes and ecosystems, I've always framed it in the realm of brand strategy. What I've actually been saying and what I've been speaking about this whole time is governance. And the reason why you relate so deeply to governance is because you are a governor. So in short, governance is when you have been bestowed the jurisdiction by God to change or transform the foundation of a realm. And the realm is essentially what Christians typically call kingdom. But in simple terms, a realm is essentially a body of thought, of principles, of standards, etc., that we're all affected by and that we all submit to and govern to. So for example, if you've watched any of my videos, then you would have heard me say your customers will be living inside of the vision that you have casted for them to participate in, right? So think of that on a mass scale. One of the biggest realms there are is capitalism. It has systems within it. It has a culture within it. It has rules. It has principles. It has standards. It has hierarchy. Another one is colonialism. This entire world, we are technically governed by the vision of colonialists from so long ago, and we're still living in that. And so when I say governors and people who have been given a jurisdiction by God, there have been people who have usurped that. And a lot of, throughout history, we have given up our authority and our power, and we have submitted to a vision, to a realm that was not ordained by God, that was out of complete order of reciprocity. And that's why we're in the state we're in. And so when I say I've been called to wake up the governors, when I say that it's time for us to wake up, I'm not talking about the typical thing where we have a revival and we stomp our feet and pray for a little bit. I'm talking about boots on the ground, actual discerned structure, architecture, articulation of these visions, these multi-venture visions that you've been holding for so long. And it's time for us to bring it about. This is the New World Order. This is what comes after the rapture. This is what comes after the end times. Those who are governors are the New World builders. And it comes in the form of commerce. It always has, and it always will be. Within governance, there are 6 archetypes. They're not specific to gender, so I don't want you to think because you're a woman, you're a queen, or because you're a man, you're a king. That's too reductive. They're not based on religion or patriarchy. Although I have been able to use the Bible as a reference, it is not directly related to that at all. All the archetypes are based off of feminine and masculine energy. So the poles of polarity. Really, when I refer to that, I'm talking about the masculine being the structure and the feminine being the flow, and the masculine being the container for the feminine. It is not biological gender. We're not talking about that today. And it has nothing to do with patriarchal standards. So I want you to just put that out the door. Any patriarchal, capitalistic, or religious conditioning, you won't be able to hear me if you have those, if you're listening through those kinds of ears. And I also want to make it known that those with governance do not perpetuate unhealthy hierarchy. Hierarchy, it only speaks to function, as opposed to what we're used to, where hierarchy speaks to worth. This has nothing to do with that. True governors stand shoulder to shoulder with other governors, and they are servants to the rest of the world. That's all. Their authority does not make them arrogant. It does not make them, they don't attract people to have people around them to feed their ego. It's not about that. This is purely function. And it's also, I also want to mention that it's important to understand that archetypes aren't something that you embody. It's not something that you relate to. It's not something that you pick up and try to vicariously live through, like you may do for, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a good example for that, but you know what I'm trying to say. Those who are governors, that's something that you are. It's not something that you cultivate. It's something that you remember. It's something that you unearth within yourself, unveil within yourself, but it's something that you are. For example, if you have a blue jay and you have an eagle, they're both birds, yeah? They both can fly, yeah? They both have beaks, they both lay eggs, correct? But the blue jay will never be an eagle, and the eagle will never be a blue jay. And that's not a matter of hierarchy in the traditional sense. It's a matter of order and function. There's a reason why there are blue jays, and there are a reason why there are eagles. But although they can relate to each other, it doesn't mean that they are each other. They're just in the same species. Same goes for governors. We're all human. We all bleed the same color of blood. We all are made in the image of God, but our function is different. And I want to make that very clear. I do not play about hierarchies, and I do not play about people trying to use this architecture system that I've created to make themselves above or beneath anyone. This only speaks to your function. Your function and your responsibility. That's it. And again, it's something that you are, and if you are any of these archetypes, or in short, a governor, that means that you've been given governance to rule over realms or multiple realms. And that is by way of birthright and soul contract. It's literally written in your DNA. It's almost like I wasn't born on a certain time and day and year that would make me a manifester in human design. I will only ever be a projector, only. Although I can relate to manifestors, I can relate to others, but I will never be anything else but that. Is in my DNA or my energetic DNA. This is in your spiritual soul DNA. Anyways, this video, or this series, will be a confirmation for what you've known for a long time. This will not be news to you. The verbiage I've been using, the vocabulary I'm using, will be news to you potentially, but this will affirm something in you that you've known for a very long time. Anyways, I want to get into the first archetype, the one that I'll be breaking down in this video, which is a king. So the king is the masculine side of realm ownership or rulership or kingdomship. I guess that's a word. So they are focused on authority, structure, direction. They create the laws, the spiritual and energetic laws of a realm. They're the ones who build institutions, and their main role in terms of rulership is setting the tone, the culture, the rules, ethics, and operating logic and standards for the realm. They lead through embodiment, leading and going first, servitude, and trailblazing. So essentially, they become the pillar and the standard for what the realm is to exist within and as. Essentially, the best archetype I have for this will probably be, not the best, but the one that's probably most known will probably be Solomon in the Bible. We all know how Saul, he kind of lost his throne. Then there's David, and we all know how he was a bit of a, what's a good word to use? He killed that woman, basically. And he had so much blood on his hands, God couldn't let him build the temple. And Solomon, he was a bit more neutral, right? So Solomon, as a king, he became the standard of culture, of commerce, of communication, of excellence that rippled throughout his entire kingdom. Kings have domains within a realm. So basically, a realm is a multitude of domains. So you can think the United States can be a realm, and then the states are domains. Kings exist and they are enthroned because there needs to be a standard enforced. And for those of you who have been called for governance, you feel the effects of whatever system you're in. You feel the lag or the lack within the healthcare system, within the founder industry, in Hollywood. Like, you sense it, you've experienced it, and you've never been able to just sit down and accept it because the reason why you can't sit down and accept it is because that is not who you are. You're not somebody who's a citizen or someone who's just supposed to be an influencer within it. You see the codes of your realm, or what some people may call industry, but that's a little bit reductive, right? You see the codes and the architecture behind each realm, and you understand what it is, why it is, and where you can improve, where you can draw back in. And you're not negative. A lot of people consider that negative, especially, like, I know for me, one thing I've always had trouble with was just, all of them, patriarchy, religion, and capitalism. I will complain about it literally since I was 7 years old. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. And I remember people always say, like, you don't even understand anything that's going on. You haven't even lived life to understand what these systems are. And the thing is, was I negative, or was I just operating out of my function, kingship, right? So if you're anything like that and you have never been able to just accept what was given to you, if every single time you walk into the workforce, you shift it, you change it, things just can never stay baseline when you're there. If you can walk into a building and you can discern how things could be stronger, or where the gaps are, or where there's structural integrity, you're a king. That's what kings do. They fortify their kingdom. As a founder, what kingship looks like is industry leadership. It's when your morals, your principles, your ideals, and standards impact every domain you touch. You become the blueprint for others to follow and be inspired by on a structural level, and you change the paradigm of a realm. When you're king, your ideas become the new baseline for others to follow to survive. Meaning, when God sends you and positions you as governor, as king in a realm, the baseline moves to who you are. That's why I said kings lead through embodiment, leading and going first, trailblazing, because you're often going to be doing something that the world has never seen before. You're often going to be doing something that pushes the edges of acceptability. You're going to be the one who's going to be challenging the people who have been leading or governing, which most of them are dead at this point, but the people who have been leading and governing this whole time, you're going to make them sit and realize that they've been slacking off. And in order for them to continue to function in what they've built, either they're going to have to step up or they're going to have to make room for somebody else. A good example of this is Rihanna's Fenty. The reason why I would consider her a type of king is because when she launched Fenty, those multiple shades, the whole industry shifted. Not just in makeup, but in skincare, in marketing, in sales, in branding. Everything shifted. Everything. And the beauty industry has never been the same. The beauty industry is something you can call a realm because there's several domains within it. You have makeup, you have skincare, you have women's skincare, kids skincare, men's skincare, you have skincare for dry skin, you have skincare, medical skincare, you have I don't know. There's many other things in the beauty industry that I'm not thinking of. You have hair care, you have people who are MUAs, you have hairstylists, you have people who are models. There's multiple domains within this realm. What Rihanna did shifted the entire industry, and in order for people to survive, they had to match her standard, and that's what it means to be a king. Another example is Elon Musk with the Supercharger network. Forget about what we think about Elon in this moment, but just remember that before Elon's Supercharger network, the industry was more dispersed. The standard was different. But when it came to electric vehicles, they don't exist without his network. They don't exist without his science. He is the standard of electric vehicles. When you think of an electric car, you think Elon Musk and Tesla. He is the standard. And he is currently ruling this realm, which is also unfortunate when you think about it because he does not have the character to govern it well. And so, are you seeing the importance of why it's time for the governors to wake up? We have basically forfeited the direction, the standard of integrity in life and excellence towards people who had the audacity to build and to be the standard. A lot of us have been caught up in religion, in patriarchy, in marriages, in corporate America, in poverty. We've been trapped and we haven't been given the permission or the understanding or the resources to build. And this is why this series is so important, because there needs to be a new standard of excellence, and that standard cannot be in the hands of the governors and the kings and the queens and the sovereigns, and as we'll learn later on in the series, right? It can't be in the hands of those who don't have proper order. When I say God's standard, God's order, it's so easy to think that I'm just saying, I'm talking about something deeply religious, and I don't want to set that precedent either. What I'm really trying to get at is that God, our creator, source, has a standard. He has principles that are encoded in our DNA. It is not natural for us to be poor. It is not natural for us to be homeless. It is not natural for up until a decade and a half ago for Black women to find hair care products, and up until less than a decade ago for Black women to find skincare and makeup that fits our complexion. It is not normal for our babies to not know how to read in the 3rd grade. That's not normal. It's not normal for our government to look like this. These are realms of governance that have been made available to you. And your multi-venture vision really is just a multi-realm or domain vision. That's what it is. This is your call to governance. And if this is something, I would say watch the rest of the series. because the last one, especially the sovereign, may relate to you if you haven't been able to identify yourself within any of the other archetypes. But anyways, that's all for the king archetype. The next one is the queen. Kings and queens are the other half to the same whole. They mirror each other. They're inverses of each other. They're the polar opposites of each other. So it will be linked down below, the queen archetype video, and it's called The Queen, Mastery of Atmospheric Influence. Anyways, the whole playlist is linked down below along with the second episode. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.